important discussion. Like as you know, I agree with you that it's essential that we pass comprehensive federal legislation to not just deschedule and not just legalize marijuana nationwide, but also regulate. Right? Let's be informed by what some of the states have done. I appreciate my home state of California being referenced just a minute ago, where the evolution, not just in public opinion, but in the laws of California was, I believe, thoughtful and frankly voter-driven. Years ago, when voters of California took us in the direction of legalizing marijuana for medical purposes only first. And there was significant time that went past before we took the leap. We weren't the first. It was after Washington, after Colorado, in allowing for recreational use. But again, with regulation, taxation, everything that comes with. So the goal of descheduling, legalizing, regulating is something that obviously could be achieved under the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, which would, among other things, also require the expungement of federal nonviolent cannabis convictions and provide for resentencing for individuals that are currently incarcerated for marijuana offenses. The bill would also limit negative consequences resulting from certain marijuana offenses on immigration proceedings. It would prevent discrimination with respect to public benefits and aid state efforts to provide loans and establish licensing programs for small businesses in the industry. My first question is for Mr. Angelos. I mean, I'll echo Senator Durbin's comments on your impact, your experience, and its impact on the conversation here. I'd love to hear from you just a little bit more. How do you think expungement of marijuana offenses would help others who are or have been in your situation?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator. I think expungements are absolutely critical. Even myself, with a pardon, still cannot fully participate in society. When I first got out, I wasn't even able to get an apartment because of my felony conviction, and so it prevents me from actually having a meaningful second chance.
Yeah, that's pretty common for folks, like I said, in or have been in your situation. Being able to apply for a job, right? There's a reason there was a whole Ban the Box campaign, and we're slowly making progress there. Dr. Burnett, question for you. Could you speak to the racial aspect built into our current sentencing system and how it has exacerbated the economic, mental, and educational inequities that we see throughout the country?
Yeah, I think that when you compare the harms associated with cannabis use to the harms associated with being incarcerated, it's a night and day comparison. I mean, as Mr. Angelos has demonstrated, you have significant constraints on your ability to be able to participate in society after coming out of a criminal justice system, which bans you across the board, whether you're participating in trying to get a job, trying to get an apartment, trying to vote, trying to just be a meaningful member of society. If you want to be healthy, you have to be welcomed back into society. And I think that, we can do a lot through this act to be able to facilitate second chances for people who have been harmed by cannabis prohibition.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair and colleagues, something I hope that we stay mindful of as we move towards not just legalization, but regulation, as I mentioned. We know that disproportionate impact through the criminal justice system on communities of color, African Americans, Latinos, but in the areas where marijuana has been legalized, only 1% of businesses in the field are Black owned.
Totally.
So we really do have to take a holistic view in all this. In my time remaining, Mr. Chair, I just want to touch a little bit upon law enforcement and an aspect of being smarter on crime. The enforcement of marijuana offenses has been incredibly costly for governments, particularly state and local governments. I know before legalization in California, it was estimated to cost the state $300 million per year to enforce marijuana laws. That's just the state tab. Even more troublesome than the cost, these efforts were often aimed at criminalizing individual offenders, sometimes for little as a joint, rather than large traffickers, which has been the source of hundreds of thousands of marijuana-related arrests across the country. And those in the trafficking business are probably trafficking more than just marijuana. So that's where the focus should have been, but it wasn't. The legalization of marijuana for medical and recreational use has freed law enforcement to focus more on more serious issues. Chief Jackson, Could you speak to how federal cannabis laws divert resources from more serious crimes and discuss the types of crimes your department is now able to focus resources on?
Yes, one of the things that's not in my biography, from the time I retired from the Baltimore Police Department until my current position, I was a professor of sociology and criminal justice at a community college. And in working on my dissertation, I've learned some pretty interesting things, and that there are certain fundamental aspects of American life and our democracy that we have to address. You know, we have to address the institution of family, we have to address the institution of our education, and even, I think, in my personal opinion, more importantly, our faith-based institutions. Absence of those, then you're going to have heavy-handed police, and especially minority communities, you're going to have heavy-handed, the heavy-handed burden of courts and corrections. We run a reentry program. I take a social approach to law enforcement now, meaning that in order to have stabilization in communities and peace in the communities, you got to address the root causes of crime to begin with. And so when inmates are paroled in the city of Annapolis, come back to the city of Annapolis, what we do, senators, we embrace them, and we try to get them out of the environment that caused them to have to go into the illicit drug trade to begin with. We try to find them jobs. This is the Annapolis PD. I have sworn members who assist young men and women to get jobs, to get them their GED, a driver's license. We have partnerships with the state of Maryland. I wish we had more federal support for those type of programs. And I do think that the target has been, most of our clients, so to speak, for lack of a better term, are minority men, the vast majority of them, some minority women. And as I sit here and listen to the testimony today, I came into law enforcement. I graduated from the Baltimore Police Department 40 years ago, and many of my commanders and supervisors were World War II, Korean War veterans. It was a different American, a different mindset. We were systematically socialized that the prototypical drug dealer and those individuals involved in the drug distribution ring, whether it be marijuana or more serious, dangerous drugs like heroin and cocaine, were African-American males. And we were taught to target them in our enforcement efforts. And we were strategically put into places throughout Baltimore City to address that. And the running joke was that if you wanted to transport drugs in Baltimore, then you would get a white male to do it because they were far less likely to be targeted or stopped for the enforcement of drugs. So when I came back into law enforcement, it's been my mission for the time that I have as the chief of police in the city of Annapolis is take a more social approach so we don't have to react to social disorganization. We can be it on the front end. And that's what's so important about the power of the federal government. If this act it becomes law, then it sends a strong message to local jurisdictions far beyond the capital city of Annapolis that we're serious about prison reform, we're serious about mass incarceration, and we're serious about,
Chief Jackson, I appreciate it, but Senator Corn and I have got a good relationship with him that I'm eroding quickly by not deferring to him and letting him
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
ask questions.
Yes, Senator.
Don't blame it on me.
For the record, I withdraw my blame.